Hey guys, recently played a game which featured this position right here, which is a very interesting endgame. As you can see, I have the two connected pass pawns, but Black's king is blockading those, and my king is kind of tied down to the defense of this pawn, stopping it from becoming a queen. My opponent actually offered me a draw here, but I declined it because I had a very interesting idea that I wanted to try. I got a little bit lucky and ended up winning this position, but there's some important king and pawn endgame principles that we can learn. So I'm going to show you the whole game, how we ended up here, and then we're going to spend the majority of the time on this position right here. Let's take a look. All right, so here we go. I was white and we had a Sicilian. I played the bishop b5 Sicilian, which is kind of my favorite. He played this interesting move, immediately bringing out the knight, which I'm not super familiar with, but I decided to just keep it simple, develop and control, defend that pawn. I castled, brought my rook over, and I played an early e5. And something interesting happened here with this rook. So normally rooks kind of sit back and they don't really do a lot until the end of the game. And here we are on move 9, and my rook is actually starting to play a role, and black just ignored this pawn on c5 and let me capture it. And there you go, my rook's actually playing a role in the game. Now, I have to be careful because it does become a target because it's such a high value piece. If a knight or a bishop or a pawn ever attack it, I have to move it. So you do have to be careful, but it was just kind of an interesting start to the game. So I put it here, pinning the knight to the queen, at least temporarily. My opponent attacked it. I went back, and this is not really the square that I want to keep my rook on for too long because I'm blocking this d pawn. And this is kind of jamming me up. If you notice, the bishop can't come out because of the pawn, the rook can't come out because of the bishop, and it's all kind of hinging on this rook on d3. So it's a little bit awkward for me. And so I didn't want to leave that there for too long, but I wanted to keep the pin temporarily, and so I decided just for right now I would go there and maybe later swing it over to h3 or something. So I think I played knight b5, and then there we go. So the rook finally goes over, and I do need to get this bishop out. That's kind of the big problem in my position. So I finally played d3 and traded that off, which I was happy to do. And now I was kind of able to get my pawns looking a little bit more normal. Now it looks kind of like a normal game again. Okay, so e5, good move by my opponent, putting pressure on the d4 pawn. And then here I think they should have just taken. And, maybe, yes, I can take here, but I don't know. This looks pretty good for black. The bishop is active. The rook is active. Anyway, they decided to push, which I was happy to see. Brought my queen over and decided to go ahead and trade off the bishop. A lot of times when they fee and kettle the bishop, if you can trade it off, that opens up the king and you can get some attacking chances. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Now the queen is doing a nice job of kind of defending everything, so it's hard for me to really do too much with only these two pieces. So brought the rook over. Black is pushing these pawns, and I decided to go ahead and go for the queen trade. So if you remember, I did win that pawn earlier on c5, and so if we count the pawns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for black, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I am up the one pawn, which I felt like was going to be a significant advantage. If you imagine if everything gets traded, let's just say hypothetically, I'm going to have this protected pass pawn. Black doesn't even have a pass pawn here, and even if they did, I would just come over here and take it with my king. And so this seemed like it was going to be good for me. So that's why I was okay, got kind of, trading and going into the end game. I didn't want my rook to get trapped here. So notice how if I allow g4, the rook doesn't have any options here. I would have to go to like up here somewhere, and then the king's going to come up and start attacking it, and it very easily gets stuck over here on h4. Just like hypothetically, let's just say I played a move like king to f1. I was afraid of this, and then actually I guess black can't play it immediately because I do have rook h4, but maybe like, king g6 first, and if I waste one more move, maybe g4 happens now. Something like this, right? Like I didn't want my rook to be stuck over here, just didn't feel like the greatest square. And so because of that, I played c4 with the idea that I'm giving myself options for the rook to come over here. And also this might be a useful move anyway, just to kind of start pushing these pawns forward. So c4 is what I played. Okay. Rook came over. F3. Now, I don't know if this was a great decision or not. Let's see. Engine doesn't seem to like it because it is kind of a committal move, allowing black to push forward. What I was hoping is that after this happened, I would be able to eventually undermine this pawn chain with like g3 and h4. But you're going to see I didn't really have too much time to do that. Black started attacking here. Started attacking here. I think b5 would have been a good move for black, and I don't think they played it right away. Yeah, they played here first, then b5, still a pretty good move. And we end up getting this trade. Okay, so we're starting to approach the position that I really want to focus on. But this is pretty interesting because I've got two connected pawns, which is great. The problem is two connected pawns against a king can't advance on their own, but a king can't take them either. So you get this interesting dynamic. And then my king is kind of stuck here. So it kind of looks like the game is headed towards a draw. And actually, after, let's see, right here, I think it was right around here, my opponent offered me a draw. And I didn't take it because I had an interesting idea that I wanted to try. And I got a little bit lucky. But if you would like to pause, what do you think my idea is for winning this game? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move that I played was the move h4. Now, why did I play a crazy-looking move like h4? Well, first thing you need to understand is that these pawns, like I mentioned before, can't get past the king on their own. So, for example, I could go check, and the king could just move here. And notice how this one can't move. And if I push this one, it just gets captured, and it basically gave away my advantage. They're just stuck. Now, at the same time, black can't really take me, because if black ever takes me, then this pawn gets by, and I get a queen. So all of these pieces are essentially stuck here. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means my king is over here trying to stop black's pawns. But this guy is really the problem. If I were to just like try to move here to bring my king up to help, black is going to get a queen, right? I can't do that. So I said, okay, if I take here, it's pretty obvious the game is going to be a draw now, right? Because my king can never leave. I can come here and then black can just move back and forth, whatever. If I ever try to go and attack these, like I just mentioned, black gets a queen, right? So I didn't want to take. And if I push, same kind of thing. Black can just push, lock everything up. I can't move. Black can't move. It's just a draw. And so I had one kind of last-ditch attempt here, as we're both getting lower on time, h4. Now, what's the idea? The idea is that if I can somehow get black to give up this pawn, then this guy's undefended. I can take it, and if my king is still able to stop the pawns, I would have given myself an extra passed pawn. Now, my opponent made a mistake and fell for my trap essentially and took here. All they needed to do was capture this way, and I have to take back and go for the draw, right? Because if I don't, and I try to do anything else, like let's just say this, well, now black is the one who's going to win because they have this pawn, and I don't have time to catch it. My king is too far, right? And of course, if I, if I go immediately over here to catch it, then this pawn becomes a queen, right? So either way, I'm in trouble. I can't stop both of them is what I was trying to show you guys. Okay, so that's all black had to do, but they made a mistake and captured this way. And this is really bad news for black because now I was able to capture that annoying pawn. And yes, black has 3 pawns. The problem is because these guys are doubled, they can't actually get through. My king is still going to be able to stop them. So I played f4. I wanted to give my king the option to come over so that I can come back. And black tried to get through, but notice what happens. Bam, my king can stop them. And yes, this pawn can come up, but I don't have to take either of those, right? So watch what happened in the game. They pushed, I pushed, they checked me, and I just went back. Okay, so this is kind of a good idea to understand. Even 3 pawns like this can't get past the king. However, my 3 pawns are separated, which is actually better when I'm trying to get past the king because the king, it's a short range piece, right? It can't be like 2 places at once. And so notice how, if black pushes, I just simply take this guy and I still have this blockade. There's nothing else black can do. And so they push the pawn and I just kept pushing. And now black has to deal with this pawn. Otherwise, I'm going to go here and then threaten to get a queen. So he tried to, but then I start pushing over here. And it's just this back and forth dance. And black can't stop both of them. And I get a queen. And I won the game. So what's the takeaway? When you're playing in these king and pawn endings, you have to be really, really careful, especially moments like this, right? Where there's a couple of passed pawns and there's a lot of tension and a lot of pawn captures. A lot of the times, in most cases, there's some very clever tricks that you have to watch out for from both sides, right? My opponent fell for this one, but it could have easily worked out the other way. If I were to, taken here, I could have been the one who lost because of this, right? So look for these passed pawn ideas, especially when the king is trying to guard multiple pawns that are kind of split up. That's really where it can be tricky and dangerous. Okay, so hopefully you guys learned something from that one. I was proud of this game to come up with this idea, you know, and actually get lucky enough that my opponent did capture. So anyway, wanted to share that with you guys. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, take care.